What's up? My name is Jake and I'll be making a short video detailing my own opinions based off of another video made 4 years prior about a terrible anime because I have nothing else better to do. This ought to be fun, let's do it. I would just like to point out that I do mostly agree with YGG Studios' stance on the importance of the premise of any show or movie. If it's a great premise and executed poorly, then the premise ultimately doesn't matter and vice versa. However, I, and not as many others as I would like, simply don't operate that way. Meaning subjectively he'd be wrong, and objectively he's entirely correct. More on that in a second. First, the 3-episode rule. This is widely regarded as the basis to whether or not you'll like the rest of any given series, but mostly referred to by people who like to watch anime, and I agree with it entirely. Not because someone may believe that it's a slow start. The reason I agree with the 3-episode rule is because if you like what you've seen of a show so far, regardless of quality, you'll know for sure whether or not you're at least interested in the plot, premise, or visuals enough to watch it in its entirety, barring some sort of freak change later on down the line, such as Attack on Titan's final season. A good example of this would be JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I recognize that it's a pretty polarizing series regarding the quality of the show. Before you get butthurt though, you need to realize that it does revolve around good quality. Not of the animation itself per se, mainly the plot, dialogue, and overall premise in general. JoJo's did not pass my 3-episode rule, however the person recommending it to me said that it was a pretty slow start, so I pushed through till about episode 9, in which I realized I hated it. I didn't like any characters presented, I didn't like the art style, I didn't like the sort of almost self-aware fourth wall breaking jokes like Robert E.O. speedwagging, and I also hated the beginning plot points, so for me personally, I'm on the disliking JoJo side of the fence. Doesn't mean it's inherently bad, I just don't like it. I do, however, also agree with YGG Studios' version of the 1-episode rule, where if you don't like the first episode, then you shouldn't continue watching. I know it sounds very contradictory, but hear me out. So here's my thought process. You start with Anime X, and you've really enjoyed what you've seen from the first episode so far. Well, then you're most likely going to continue to episode 2, now putting the 3-episode rule into effect. Once you progress past the first episode and you find yourself disliking the general direction, then I understand how someone would prefer not to continue watching even after liking the content prior. Now let's say that you don't like the first episode of Anime X. There's no reason or motivation to watch past the first episode, and that's fine. For today, I'll be not quite defending, but explaining why I really enjoyed Gate, the shameless JSDF recruitment ad for younger otakus of Japan, and also why you probably didn't or wouldn't like it either. I really like the premise and execution. I also think it was garbage. Let me explain what I mean real quick. Objectively, it was a terrible anime. The plot is good enough, sure, but said execution was definitely not as good as it could have been, especially considering all of the actual filler that there is. There's this gothic lolly character named Rory Mercury, literally introduced by explicitly mentioning she's a gothic Lolita. If there's any more blatantly lazy writing in anime in general, then I've struggled to find it. Not to mention, none of the supporting cast really fits the show you'd imagine by just seeing the premise, including the overly sexualized Lolita. To be honest, her presence on screen had made me uncomfortable the majority of the time, and I'm just kinda happy to get that out there. I do think, however, that the scenes that they got right were done very right. For example, the fact that men with ancient-style gear and fighting tactics were all but obliterated by the sheer tactical and technological advantage of a modern military force. That's fucking amazing. Let's face it, no matter what analytical YouTubers say or do to nerf today's forces in a theoretical situation for a cool YouTube video, ancient armies stand no chance against a force like that. Even a small fire team would be capable of wiping out a platoon of under-armored and less experienced men in the art of guerrilla warfare. However, in order for the plot to come together and keep someone hooked, they're going to have to curb some expectations and keep them guessing. The problem with Gate is that you're immediately met with the reality that you know exactly what's going to happen and it's not going to keep you guessing. At least not past the first episode, and I mean he literally goes from otaku manchild to straight up throat-cutting savage in 15 seconds, so what are you gonna do? The JSDF continuously abolishes any physical obstacle in their way, and it never changes. There's one exception that could be argued with the Great Dragon episode, but there's a small squad inexperienced in fighting giant mythological creatures, and they still made it out fine. Big fucking surprise. I mean, come on. This anime never had any intention of being groundbreaking, and that's fine, but the plot was subpar at best, and I get it. But god damn, all I've ever wanted to see, and not just an anime, was a modern military force go up against some super ancient armies and just watch them get slaughtered. I didn't start watching because I wanted to see tactical fights. I literally just wanted to watch people of an unknown land get their shit rocked harder than Chris Brown's spouse, and that's exactly what I got. To make things clear, I got exactly what I wanted. Most others did not. I'm not saying it's good, but damn, it is entertaining, and it really only appeals to people like me. From my understanding, people with my particular taste in anime are few and far between, but I'll touch on my media tastes in a moment. Even though it's blatantly unrealistic nationalism, it's super interesting to me. The fact that the fantasy population even considered making diplomatic relations with another country in another dimension based on their sheer ability to crush them in 5 minutes makes this a big one for me. I loved how the main character thought it was a great idea to take a lolly in a dark maid outfit, an actual child, a fucking elf with a crop top, though I will say she did dress up for this occasion, so I'll give her a pass on that, and himself, who hates his work, through the gate to attend a sort of congressional hearing about the benefits to travel to another dimension in the first goddamn place is absolutely over the top and mind-boggling to me, and I absolutely love it. For this scene, my imagination had shifted back and forth between what would something like this actually look like and holy shit, did she really just say little girl to the clearly grown woman 5 times like it wasn't cringe the first time? In short, it was probably the second best aspect of the whole series to me, but I 100% see the flaws in every scene like this. I will point out, however, that Rory having a weapon in a place like that being wrapped up like a Christmas present was something I had to sort of erase from my mind. It only would have made sense if she took it out fully, which our protagonist stopped her from doing anyway, so what was the point? Even just taking out the scythe in a government building could have caused a super interesting political subplot with the media making them out to be violent savages capable of hurting their homeland. I digress. My taste in any media really doesn't have that high of standards. I can forgive poor audio, visuals, terrible voice acting, jarring, unfitting music, or really any problem at all, so long as they're not always in my face at any given moment. My imagination tends to just fill in any blanks that either don't matter or are so small they can just be ignored. For example, in the first episode, as YGG explained already, it is mentioned twice that our main character is in love with all things anime related and would gladly pick them over work if given the choice. Not to mention the terrible world building around Serutaku bullshit, but that's where my imagination comes in. We'll use YGG's example of the absolutely horrendous art on the side of the subway car in episode 1. Instead of taking those drawings at face value, my imagination just sort of subliminally starts replacing those sorts of things with things I've experienced already, like actual anime characters in which I could imagine being popular enough in Japan to have a subway train decked out in decals with. I get how if they just did that in the first place then there wouldn't be an issue, but it's easier this way. Anyway, I can somewhat relate to the protagonist's desire to be consumed by his otaku lifestyle. However, my desire is just not about anime. Music is really my medium of choice, but anime is awesome to me, and YGG pulled some inspiration out for myself to make a video explaining why I personally find it to be an entertaining watch. So much so, I've watched it twice. I really like Gate, because it's simple turn your brain off entertainment, and that's exactly what I was looking for when I found it. I'm sure I would have loved it if the production was done much better, but I'm not complaining at all. The fact that I got to see multiple instances of a modern military force decimating a huge population based on military advancement alone is already awesome as all hell. I'm acutely aware that the series is objectively and without question dog shit. I know some people probably like it for other reasons than I, and wanted someone to defend it as a great anime, but let's be honest, if it was a great anime and I thought it was a great anime, then I wouldn't have had the idea for this video. It's an amazing show. To me. Maybe to a few handfuls of people who have watched it, but I'm not surprised in the least to find that most people hate it with a passion. I mean, come on, the lolly is literally just introduced as a lolly, and then the main character comes inches away, no pun intended, from having sex with that lolly just because she's a horny lolly death god that gets off on people dying. That's just terrible fucking writing, not to mention it made me so uncomfortable I had to skip through it both times I had watched the series. But to reiterate, that's another moment where my brain just sort of rewrote it subliminally, and I quickly forgot about that shit scene. I think I just replaced it with the bitch just still chilling in the chair waiting for a fight to break out, only for the protagonist to find out what was happening moments before bloodshed of the main cast had occurred. Another reason for the shit side of things would probably be that there's really not any challenge for the cast other than the elf chick having severe delusions about her father, which also became very uncomfortable by the way, and even that was a non-problem in the end considering she just continued to call the motherfucker daddy when she stopped hallucinating her father in place of the protagonist. If that isn't the perfect example of a super mega horny studio forcing fan service on an audience that probably wasn't asking for it, then I don't know what bullshit example you're giving people. But it's not just the tropes that are bad, the writing in general is still just terrible. Let's not forget about the scene where the only woman combatant in the squad beat the shit out of a dude 3 times her size for no reason. I don't mean she didn't have a reason to, I just mean my mind couldn't come up with a way to fill that blank. And I get it. It's a cartoon, it's not meant to be realistic. Well, fuck you. I had to watch something so unrealistic happen in a case where fantasy aspects of the show weren't involved. Maybe I'm just sexist. I don't think I am, but I can't wait to see the only comment I get being about how I hate women. I still thought it was a badass moment, but it just felt that they wanted the audience to know that they're in favor of strong, independent females. Anyway, I quickly forgave it, naturally, but there's no way in hell she would have taken someone of that stature with her bare hands regardless of technique. Some men are just tanks, and people of ancient times had to be in order to be strong enough to survive a battle of swords. And magic in this case, I guess. Just another reminder that this is just a foreign cartoon made to make the GSTF look like badasses, so whatever. Would I recommend this show? Yes, but not always. I would recommend this show to anyone on the off chance that they would like it for the same reasons I do. However, I'm sure that day may never come, and honestly, I didn't and still don't care whether or not it does. In order to know if you like it, then watch the first episode and go from there. I recommend watching episode 2 because that's where I found the most appeal to keep watching. I like the sort of violent notions of the first episode, but obviously not everyone thinks the same. Though I still stand by my beliefs on YGG's 1 episode rule. If you don't like the first episode at all, then there's even less of a chance you'll like the second episode, so do what you want, I guess. This show isn't great, and I know it, and I don't have time to care about one series that flies below the radar of people who watch shows I'd rather watch in the first place. That would also be the reason I wouldn't recommend it, simply because I don't care about the show enough to build social connections around it. It clearly is recruitment propaganda, and I'm not going to deny that. I simply enjoy watching a bloodbath from time to time, and the premise alone kept me going throughout the whole series twice. In conclusion, whether you agree with me or disagree, it doesn't really matter. What matters is, on the topic of anime, you consume what you enjoy and ignore what you don't. I enjoy Gate. Most people don't, and that's fine. I objectively agree and subjectively disagree with YGG Studios' stance on a subject from a video which is already 4 years old at the time of recording this. I mean, ignorance is bliss, so I like it. I just feel people's opinions can be unnecessarily harsh. Ultimately, it doesn't matter, and no one actually cares about a faceless entity's opinions on the internet other than to validate someone's already pre-existing opinions. Point is, I like the show and you probably won't. That's all there is to it. Please check out the original video. It's by YGG Studios. It's 4 years old. I have no clue what other content he makes. I just had that video recommended to me and I had a bit of a inspired moment when I watched it. Check it out. It's much better. It's really good quality. I'm gonna watch more of his content probably.